Hello, guys. Welcome to this second class, beginner level astrology. I'm your astrologer, Christian Klausner, and today we are going to dive into the planets, which is basically the missing half. So we've done the first half of astrology, which is the 12 signs. The next half is the planets, and together that creates the meat and potatoes of astrology. So we're gonna start with the notes. So go ahead and pull out your notebook or your piece of paper and your pen. We're going to begin with drawing, and then I'll get into the lecture afterwards. So the reason for that is we're going to have you guys draw the symbols because that's the best way to ingrain this knowledge, into your mind and into your subconscious mind so that this becomes deeply ingrained into you, right? Through drawing it out. I'm also going to explain the meanings of the symbols as we draw them. And then we're going to fill in these symbols into the zodiac signs. So we're actually going to redraw what we drew in the last class. We're going to do another circle because repetition leads to mastery. And so it'll be much easier this time for you since you've already done it. We're going to fill it in with the signs. And then we're going to fill it in with the planetary rulerships. And you're going to learn so much more about the planets and about the signs by understanding what the rulerships are. So I'll give you the correct terms for that and everything too. It's called the essential dignities, but I'll give that to you so you can write it down. Okay, and let me just get adjusted here. Oh. Okie dokie. We're gonna go like this. Okay. All righty. Okay. So what we got here is what we worked on yesterday, the 12 signs. So we're going to redo this. We're going to fill in the planets. So sorry, I'm making all these grunting noises. I'm so sore. So sore. Hitting the gym. Just got a lot of energy that comes forth during the winter. During the spring. And thank goodness for the gym as an outlet. All right. So we got a blank canvas. Let's begin. All righty. So first thing we're going to do before we do the circle, we're going to list off the planets. Okay. So let me see what I have here for you for my presentations. All right. Yeah, we'll do this first. Okay. So firstly, and the way I'm seeing this is it's going top down. But if you want to go horizontal with it, you can. But I'm going to work from the top down just because that's the way I'm seeing it in my mind. So we're going to start off with the sun. Okay. All right. The sun comes first. And you actually have already drawn this symbol. So we just have a circle. And with a little point in the center. This is the sun. So as you remember from the last class, the circle represents the infinite spirit with no end and no beginning. The point in the center represents a point of individuality being birthed from the infinite. So what we all are at our core is an individual, and this individual is, are we in focus here? There we go. The individual is a spark of the divine. So we come from the infinite source of the divine. All of us are sparks of this one spirit. And that's really the magic of this whole thing, is that we come from a spiritual source and all of us are one. And it's a miracle, it's a gift that we have our individuality amongst other individuals, even though we all come from the same one parent source, the same creator. So that's what the symbol is about, and that's what the sun sign is. The sun sign represents the day you were born, right? So the sun is the inner I am. It's your inner sense of I am, okay? So that's why, whatever your sun sign is, you say, I am an Aries. I am a Taurus. I am a Libra. I am a Leo, because that is the spark of consciousness within you. And that's the day of your birth that you came into incarnation, right? So that's what the sun is. And if you access your heart, you will locate the source of your inner I am. This is the source of your power, your will, your identity, and it's your heart. It's the source of the warmth of life that comes through you in the chart. So the sun in the chart shows your identity, your will, your purpose, what brings you life from the heart, what you enjoy doing. And it's really just shows how you shine from your center. Okay. So, so that's the sun. Now we're going to draw the next symbol, which is the moon. So the moon, typically, it goes this way. But it can be drawn the other way just as well. When it's drawn the other way, it symbolizes this would symbolize the waxing moon, the moon that grows in light. If it was drawn from the other angle, it would symbolize the waning moon, the moon that is decreasing in light. But really, whatever way you prefer to draw it, it's fine. There's no real right or wrong way. This is the moon. Now, this symbol symbolizes receptivity, because the crescent is a symbol which holds. It can be filled or it can be empty. And so this is the symbol for the moon. Okay. So whereas the sun represents the spiritual source of consciousness from your heart, the moon represents the mind. And oftentimes we're told that the moon symbolizes your emotions, how you feel, and that's true. But in its totality, how we feel, feelings arise from the mind, at least in their emotional counterpart. And we could notice somebody whose mind isn't working properly, they can't think properly or perceive things mentally. They might not be feeling the same emotions that other people are whose mind is functioning fully, right? So they'll still feel things. I'm not saying they have no feelings, but they don't register the same sense impressions that we do through our complexity of thought. So the moon has to do with the mind, or the brain, more accurately. And what it is the principle of reflection. Okay, so the moon reflects the light of the sun, just as your mind reflects the light of consciousness. All right, so our mind takes this light that comes from our heart and reflects it back upon itself, and that creates the mind. In Vedic astrology, the moon represents the mind. In Western astrology, we hear a lot about how the moon represents the emotions, which it really does. The moon has to do with that more personal, reflective sense of self. So when we talk about things and how they feel, it reflects how we feel it personally. But really, all things are spiritual. And so this is how we rise in consciousness, is in recognizing that, in learning that the way people treat us, yes, it feels personally, but when we can realize it has more to do with them than it has to do with us and their state of consciousness, we can start to see how it's more of a spiritual reality when we allow people to make us feel certain ways. I was just having a conversation with somebody today earlier in that it's not possible for you to disrespect me. Nobody has the ability to disrespect me. You could try, but I'll just look at you like you're crazy because I would have to consent to feeling disrespected. If you try to disrespect me and you try to make it as personal as you can, maybe I'll feel the insult, especially if it's very accurate about something in my life or if it's something I'm a little insecure of. But I know that I'm only feeling that way because I'm insecure about something, not because of you and what you're saying. Again, the source is always within. The source of how your consciousness registers outside impressions has to do with you, with the inside. Again, guys, just want to say here as a caveat that before we continue, everything I say here, you could take it or leave it. Just let it go in one ear and out the other. You don't need to believe whatever I'm saying here. Don't believe whatever doesn't sit right with your heart, because a lot of this is just my perspective. All right. So, but this is what the symbols mean. This is about reflection. This is about the pure source of consciousness, who you are. Okay. So the moon has to do with the mind and its reflection principle. Without the moon, it is said that there would be no physical world reflected. The moon also rules over the emotions that we feel and the personal self, how we take things personally. The sun is the individual self. This is a fascinating symbol throughout the tradition of astrology, which is that we have the individuality, which is the spark of the divine, who you uniquely are. And then we have the personality, which is more of a coping mechanism socially. The personality is a conglomeration of different ingredients of other people's personalities, and it makes our unique personality that we have. But the uniqueness of the personality, your unique flavor, is derived from this source, from the sun, which is your individuality, which is the spark of the divine. A personality is a mask that we wear, and we wear this mask because of our moon. Our moon seeks security. Okay. The sun is about identity, who you truly are, the light of awareness. The moon is about security. And you're going to see that in what signs the moon rules. The moon rules one sign, but the moon is exalted in another sign. And I'll explain what this means in this class. The moon is really about security. So it's about also insecurity. So the moon is that part of you that can feel insecure. The sun is that part of you that is in its power. It feels powerful. And in fact, there's no feeling to it, really. There's no feeling to the sun. The moon is that which feels. The sun just is. It's pure being. So that's another key word for the sun, is being. When you are just being and you're in a state of no thought, you're in your sun. You're accessing your sun sign. When you're in a state of thinking and feeling, reflecting, you're in your moon. Again, one is not right, one's not wrong. It's just this is how consciousness plays upon the physical world, right? So again, the moon reflects the light of the sun. The mind reflects the light of consciousness. And becoming free in this world, overcoming our karma, has to do with being able to see, to embody the awareness behind your impulsive thoughts, and to be able to take a breath. And in that space, you'll find the key to be able to choose another way, to act or to react or to think. But when we identify with our thoughts, especially the impulsive thoughts, the thoughts that race through our head without control, we tend to lose our spiritual connectedness to our source. Right. Speaking of thoughts, we have the next planet, which is Mercury. So we're going to draw a crescent like this, one that receives, similar to Taurus. Okay. And then we have a circle right underneath that. Again, this looks just like Taurus, doesn't it? But the symbol of Mercury has a cross right below that circle. So this is Mercury. Mercury is the god of thought and speech. And it is said that human beings, in old Hermetic texts, it said that humans were bestowed the gift of language and thought. And in this gift, we were given the ability to create. And it's as though we were handed the staff of Hermes, which is the caduceus. You know, it's this dual snake looking thing with the rod going down the center. That's the caduceus, two snakes that intertwine and meet up here. And this is the symbol for the hospital system. And if you notice, a lot of the symbols in society, such as, you know, the law system, they use the symbol of the scales, which comes from Libra. You'll notice pretty much almost every car brand, Taurus, Saturn, Ram, Dodge Ram, they're all connected to astrological symbols. I just want you guys to keep your minds open, keep your eyes open to the symbolism in this world around you, because the architects of society use these symbols, because these symbols are tied into, again, they're tied into our DNA. All right, so Mercury is the god of the analytical part of the mind. It's about what Hermes is, and Mercury is Hermes in Greek mythology. It's about being able to travel between the worlds above and the worlds below. Mercury is the only god that can travel both to Olympus, the heights of Olympus, and go down into Hades. And he can go as he pleases because he's the messenger. Hermes is the god of is the messenger god. Okay, so this is the analytical part of your brain. So if I were to break this down so you can feel it embodied, I'm using my Mercury. I'm using my Mercury to communicate with you, and your Mercury is the part of you that is analyzing and taking my language in. Then you're reflecting on it, and you're reflecting it and applying it to your personal experience in life through what? Through your moon. And it's probably making you feel a certain way. That's your moon. But that you sitting in the chair, just being here with me, that's your sun. Okay. So when we tune in, when we look in each other's eyes and we can just see each other right here, just be, that's our suns. That's our sun sign. And the appreciation of that, the awareness of that is the sun. So me right here, there's no thoughts in my mind. I'm allowing the words to come. I'm just being here. That's my sun sign. And it comes through in a Leo way. Maybe looks a little proud. Maybe looks a little happy, a little comfortable to be in the limelight, to have the attention on me. That's a Leo thing. Because Leos love to shine for the benefit of others. They love to be here for the benefit of others in a creative way, which is fun. So that unique flavor of being is your sun sign. That's how you can start to guess people's sun signs based on their presence. So your presence is the sun. The moon is the part of you which reflects and takes it in. The Mercury is the part which is using these words and analyzing the words and understanding the language and piecing it together and analyzing it. Okay, so that's how it is embodied. And it's very important to embody this stuff so that this doesn't just become head knowledge. You know what I mean? So it's not just all in your brain. The real way to learn this is to allow this is so you can understand how this actually manifests in the physical world. So Mercury is about analyzing. Mercury is the thinker. You could say it's the verbalizer of the thoughts in your head. All right, that's Mercury. So again, this is receiving something from above, mental energy. It's spirit. Spirit works through the mind. Just by thinking of something, you can tune into the spirit of it. All right. And then thought has a manifestation in the physical, which is what this cross is about. So thought always manifests in the body. You can know when somebody has insecure thoughts because you'll see their shoulders crunch in. You'll see it in their posture. Thought always has its physical counterpart. So that's what these symbols mean. Again, if you guys will just meditate, contemplate, sit very still and access your heart, you will know what all these symbols mean. You won't need me to explain it to you. but I'd be happy to explain it to you if you have any questions at all. Just contemplate and you'll see the answers within you. Okay? So so this is the planet of the mind. And I know that's confusing because you're like, well, didn't you say the moon was the mind? Again, the mind is a reflector, which has its chief ruler in the moon. But the moon is also about how that mind reflects and affects the whole body. So the moon relates to the etheric sheath, which is the body just outside the physical body, which we don't see, which contains all the sense impressions of our past. That's why the moon rules the past. And the ancestral memory, which comes from the mother through the umbilical cord, which is carried in the belly, the solar plexus. Okay, so that's why the moon relates to the past and to the mother. So don't worry, this whole picture will become pretty clear as we go on. All right. So Mercury also is about communication. Communication. All right. So if these were your various instincts, the sun is your instinct to shine. The moon is the instinct to feel. All right. Mercury is the instinct to communicate, to think, to speak, and to reason. So if you're struggling to write all this down, don't worry about it. You'll have time. You'll have the slides that I'll give you later on. Just go ahead and write down some keywords. Again, make these notes easy on yourself because these will sink in as you write them down. As you just write the keywords next to the symbol, it'll all come together for you. Okay, quite naturally. Don't overthink this. Don't be over analytical. Just let it sink in and sort of let this be a meditation. All right, we're going to come to the next planet. So the moon is the closest one to Earth. But we start with the sun because the sun is the main player, the key character in this whole drama. Moon is the closest to Earth. So the moon is really about the home. It's the closest thing to home, which is why the moon relates to the personality, how you personally feel. All right. Isn't that making sense? What you personally feel is what is closest to home for you. That's the moon. The closest planet to the sun is Mercury. That's why Mercury is next. Mercury moves so fast, 88 days, it goes around the sun. And the Mercury never strays very far from the sun. It's always at least, at the most, it's like just a sign away from the sun. And once Mercury pulls ahead of the sun, from our perspective from Earth, then Mercury goes retrograde and comes back. And then once it's about a sign away, then Mercury catches back up to the sun, goes past the sun, stops, goes retrograde. And really what you see when you chart the heavens, you see Mercury moving like a pendulum. And if you go forward in time, which you can do with this app, Time Nomad, one of my favorite apps, you'll see Mercury just go ahead and go back and go ahead of the sun and go back. And Mercury just keeps going like this with the sun. It's like a pendulum. It's pretty incredible. All right, the next planet is going to be Venus. Venus comes after Mercury. All right, so we start with a circle and we just have a cross right there. Boom. So it looks just like Mercury minus the receptive part of mental energy. It's just the circle of the spirit with the cross of matter. And because the circle is above the cross, we're dealing with spirit dominating matter. So here we have Venus. All right, this is the feminine energy. You'll notice this symbol shows if it's a female bathroom. This is the symbol for females. And Venus is inherently feminine. And think of the qualities of the feminine, which also relate to earth and water. Those are the feminine elements. It's about receiving. And but Venus is the creative part. So Venus is your love nature in a personal sense. It shows what you desire or what you love in your interactions with others. It's a very social planet. It's about being social. This is the part of us that is tuned into emotional dynamics. And you're going to notice this through the signs that Venus rules. But there's also a mental component to this because socializing is a mental thing. So what this is about is understanding how to tune in to others. Okay, so we're using our Venus right now, or I'll bring it to me. I'm using my Venus in the way that I'm choosing the tone of voice and the way that I'm choosing to relate this material to you. So Venus is the part of you and the part of me that is sensitive to social dynamics. So if people were to start typing in the chat right now, this presentation sucks, what the heck, that doesn't make sense, it would be my Venus that would take it in and receive it and go, oh, how do I need to adjust? How do I need to adjust my expression? Again, Venus is a creative element so that others can harmonize with it. So Venus is always taking into account how the other's feeling. This is why in psychology, you know, females are more attuned to people, to social dynamics, the subtleties of human interaction. Men are more attuned to things. And that's just the psychology of it. And that's just on a general scale. Okay. So Venus is this human element of understanding the soul and how that plays through mentally and socially. Okay. Hope that makes sense. So Venus is always going to be the part of you that is tuned into the subtler dynamics of how you're communicating, right? So Mercury and Venus are working together through me now to relay this information to you in a way that can be relatable, in a way that can make sense, and in a way that you can hopefully love it. All right, so this is also about romance, relationships, what we desire in our interactions. If you've got Venus in an earth sign, you probably like bodily contact, being physically close. If it's in an air sign, you probably like being mentally stimulated, and so on and so forth. We'll get into the elements of the planets. Don't worry, we'll get there. But for the next planet symbol, it is Mars. So Venus comes after Mercury. Then we have Earth. And then on the other side of Earth, now we have Mars. That's how it goes in the solar system. So we draw a circle of spirit, and there's an arrow above symbolizing release of power or a direction, specific direction that the spirit is moving. This is masculine energy. This is the masculine within all of us. This is about taking action. So Mars is working through me now as I write this stuff out. Any action you take, whether it's to open your mouth and speak or to write something down, I'm using Mercury in my analytical mind to think of the language, but it's my Mars which is acting through me. So Mars is the heat in the blood. It's the red god of war. Rules iron. Iron is hemoglobin in the blood, which is what makes the blood red. So it's about action. And Mars is the warrior. It's about energy and drive. Whatever you are driven to do, whatever you feel heat rising within you to go and do, which is desire, that's your Mars. If you're a little more chill, you probably have Mars in a water sign. If you're like me and you love to teach and change minds and push forward mentally, you probably have Mars in an air sign like I do. All right. Again, we'll get to the elements later, but just understand the elements are sort of what show the style of the planets. Okay. So the next planet we have is Jupiter. And so what we draw is a crescent going that way. We've got a horizontal line there, and then we've got a cross. So this is the crescent of the soul dominating the cross of matter. I forgot to write Mars here. Let me write Jupiter here. This is Jupiter. Uncle Jupe. He's the biggest boy in the solar system. And this is really all about expansion. Now, there's a few things that underlie expansion in this universe. In order for something to expand, it also needs order. It needs to be ordered. Because what is expansion without order? It's chaos. All right. And it won't last. So Jupiter is about expansion, which lasts, which is good. And Jupiter has a mix of both feminine and masculine energy. And the principle of Jupiter is about improvement. It's all about expansion. So wherever in your life you feel generous, you feel big, you feel larger than life, you feel like you want to grow and share, that's your Jupiter. All right. And Jupiter is about meaning. Let me tell you something interesting here. Jupiter is such a big planet that the astronomers tell us that the gravitational field of Jupiter is so strong that it takes in foreign objects that fling into our solar system and it flings it back and sends it away. They tell us that Jupiter literally protects the Earth. So what's interesting is that Jupiter is the protector. It's a guardian. And if you think about what protects us ultimately from destroying ourselves and others, from suicide, is meaning. Meaning protects you. If you feel and think and believe that life has no meaning, you're very likely to do that thing of just destroying yourself. And you can do it in one big way and take your physical life, or you can do it in many small ways throughout your life and do a slow suicide. And that's what most people do. Most people are just on a very slow spiritual suicide. And the reason for that is because they lack meaning. They don't have purpose. They haven't discovered themselves. So Jupiter is that energy of expansion and order and meaning. And the more meaning you see in life, the more protected you are from doubt, from dismay. Okay, so this is Jupiter. He protects our solar system and he protects you within you. And this is about the soul dominating matter. Okay, so the physical may look a certain way, but if you can tune into the soul's purpose and have that dominate appearance, you are tuning into your Jupiter, the principle of meaning, improvement. All right. So Jupiter is coming through me now in the sense that I'm trying to give meaning to each of these things. Okay. Mercury is the information. Jupiter is that part where I'm telling you the meaning of this information. Okay. And Mercury registers that meaning, but it doesn't become an embodied feeling state dominating the body until you understand the meaning of it. And that's your Jupiter. Okay. Pretty cool, huh? All right. I think we have enough room here. I'm going to do the next planet, which is Saturn. So what we have is a cross, the cross of matter, which is now dominating the soul. Okay. So this is the symbol for Saturn, which is this symbol. It's just shaped a different way. It's just kind of turned a different way. The crescent is turned a different way, and obviously it's flipped so that the cross is on top. Okay, so here we have Saturn. Saturn is the planet of contraction, the opposite of Jupiter. Whoops. Contraction. It's interesting the word contract is in contraction because Saturn is also the planet of karma. It's a planet of karma. It shows what the karma is in the life, the hard lessons you're here to work through. And this is really the planet that shows your nature for discipline, your unique way that you're here to, that you most naturally can find discipline, or the most beneficial way you can find discipline. My Saturn's right on top of my ascendant. So for me, it's all about self-discipline. If I don't have self-discipline, I don't even feel like I have an identity. I'm just way too hard on myself. And that's due in part to my Saturn being right on my ascendant. It used to be a very powerful source of doubt and insecurity until I learned how to just work with those thoughts. So one way you can think of Saturn is it's your inner critic. It's that part of you which is always pointing out how you are deficient, how you are contracted, how you're limited. This is the planet of limitation. It's your awareness of your limits. Now, limits are a good thing. The funny thing is people fight against their Saturn until they learn that limitation is actually the best thing in the world. There's no garden without a wall, without a limit. If there's no walls around it, it's not a garden. Animals are going to come in and mess it up and pull out the weed, pull out the plants and trample over the seeds. And you can have no garden without limitation. This is also the way in which we grow in a stable way. It's like Saturn is like the parent that tells you you can only play in the backyard. Once you show that you can obey your discipline, you can obey my limitation, then I'll give you free reign in the front yard, because that's where the street is, and I don't want you running out on the street. So Saturn always holds us back until we're ready in consciousness. And it's only through accepting your limitations that you begin to grow beyond them. And we get into trouble when we try and rebel against our own limitations and push too fast, because then we don't expand with order. All right, so that's Saturn. It shows, based where it is in your chart, your natural ability to discipline yourself. And it also shows the area of the greatest restriction that needs to be restructured, which shows where you feel innately restricted. And learning to work with this area can be super valuable. All right, so hopefully you've got that. I'm going to erase this now. And we're going to move on to the next planets that lie outside of Saturn. So the trans-Saturnian planets, which means, they're just outside the bonds of Saturn, are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay, so Uranus is a very interesting symbol. Something like this. There's 2 crescents here. All right. 2 crescents. And then we got this, which is supposed to be the H for Herschel, the name of the guy who discovered this planet. But I think there's a deeper meaning for this. Sort of looks like Pisces there, doesn't it? And then we've got a line going through vertically and then a circle there. That's the symbol for Uranus. You can call it your anus if you want to say the word anus. I don't really know why you'd want to do that, so I say Uranus. Okay, Uranus. Uranus. Your anus. Okay, this is the planet of change. This is a planet of liberation. Uranus rules. The best way to think of Uranus to understand it mentally. And so I would just want you to know these planets that lie beyond Saturn are not visible to the naked eye. Here's your eye. Okay. You cannot see them. You cannot ever see them ever with your naked eye, unless you're maybe a clairvoyant. I don't know. These were discovered with the help of technology. So Uranus also rules technology, but if you want to understand what Uranus rules, it rules earthquakes and catastrophes and earth-shattering, mind-shattering, limitation-breaking realizations. All right. So if we were to decode this symbol, we could say it's related to duality and to the linking of the duality through consciousness. But it is stabilized by the vertical line of power, and it derives its energy from spirit. So again, this is meant to be contemplated, not understood analytically. So yeah, this is about change. It's about liberation. Anything that shatters your reality, that's Uranus doing his work. So it's about awakening. And breaking past limitations, because it comes right after Saturn. So it shows where you need to change. It shows where you can best change in your life and how you can express your uniqueness. And I'll show you how that looks in all the different the different elements. But just so you know, Uranus is basically that thing. The planets that are beyond Saturn are so hard to tune into because their vibrations are so fine that they'll always be very hard to understand at this stage of our evolution. But Uranus is, you could think of it as your higher mind, the part of you which can intuitively and instantaneously grasp a new idea or a new invention or a new concept that you've never thought of before. And that's Uranus. All right. So next we have Neptune. Neptune is a crescent, and then the line going down here, which makes the trident, of course. And then we have the cross. So this symbol kind of looks like, you know, a trident, sure, because it's Neptune. Right. I get it. You know, god of the sea. Okay. But it also looks like an antenna. And Neptune, this is your psychic antenna. Neptune is about tuning into transcendence through unity. So this can show how you express your ideals. It's a very soulful planet. Or your dreams for your life and for the world. And this is also the antenna, which is the image receiver, the thing in your mind which can receive images. What do we call that? We call that the imagination. Imagination. So this is the thing that will trip you up in life immensely, or it's the thing that will create the future you desire. It really all depends. Are you using your imagination from fear, imagining what you don't want to have happen, or are you imagining what you do want to have happen? And believing in that vision and magnetizing that vision with faith. So that's the question here. And so basically, Neptune is about transcendence. All these planets are about transcendence. But it's also the mystic. When you have a strong or pronounced Neptune in your chart, it shows the ability to channel, it shows the ability to be psychic. And again, we can either get lost in our imagination, or we can use our imagination to redream the world and to make it amazing and magical. So Neptune is neither good nor bad, but this can be either self-deception, or this can be liberation, to understand the real unity of all things. Next, we have Pluto. So there's two symbols we can use for Pluto. So the first one looks something like this. We've got the crescent, and then we have a circle in the middle. Boom. So this relates to the seed and the flower. Pretty interesting symbol. Spirit contained by really two crescents of the soul going inward on each other, growing from matter or dominating matter. The other symbol we have for Pluto, and it's much easier, is this. It's a P with a line here. So that represents Pluto. And basically what Pluto is about is rebirth. But what comes with rebirth is also death. The caterpillar does not become the butterfly until the caterpillar dies. For the caterpillar to be reborn into the butterfly, it has to die to its old existence. So Pluto tends to show us in the chart where we can transform ourselves really powerfully. This is the planet of transformation. This planet moves extremely slowly. I'll give you the time of the orbits later. But this shows where you can die to your old self and be reborn. All right. This is also a planet of power. And it deals with a lot of subconscious dynamics, things that we have repressed. For example, the atrocities in World War II were reflections of a lot of the repressed rage and emotions that, you know, the civilized, modernized, industrialized society had repressed and internalized. And so it just got thrown out back onto the screen of consciousness. A lot of these things have to do with Pluto, very, very deep internal stuff is what we're dealing with Pluto. And Pluto, again, moves very slowly. So any Pluto transit, it shows a long-term sort of transformation or rebirth process that you're going through there. All right. So those are the symbols of the planets. Great job. Now we're going to continue on to understand how these planets fit in with the signs. All right. Isn't that cool? So cool. So rad. All right. Now, all right, so now we're going to repeat our circle. We're going to do another circle. So again, we're going to do a circle and we can break that up into quadrants. There's roughly one quadrant. Here's another. Actually, you know what? I'm going to need a little more room than that. Okay, my perfectly imperfect circle. Now we're going to quarter this. We're going to make this into quarters. We're going to do our vertical line. Now we're going to do our horizontal line. All right, now we're going to fill this in with, to make it 12 slices in total for this pie. So we're going to go about here, boom, and here, boom. Same thing here and here. All right. Again, 1, 2, just 2 lines for every quarter. 1, 2. That makes 12 in all. This is really good to get familiar with. So you can understand 1 is opposite 7, 2 is opposite 8. This is how you start to know just instinctively Taurus is opposite Scorpio, because you know that Taurus is 2 and Scorpio is 8. So anyways, we're going to trust this process here and start to fill these in with the numbers now. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the numbers of the slices, also called houses. And the houses correspond to the signs. The 9th house corresponds to the 9th sign, Sagittarius, for example. Okay. So we got our 12 houses there, boom. Now we're going to fill this in with the signs. All righty. We are going to color code this. So we're going to do, I'm going to do it closer on the inside because on the outside is where I'll have the planets. All right. So this time we're going to do it right here. There's Aries. Next we have Taurus. Next we have Gemini. Okay. Look at them go. Next we have Cancer, the 4th sign. The sign of the home and family. The sign of the mother. Next we have Leo, the sign of the heart, the sign of joy and creativity. Then we have Virgo, the sign of the Virgin, the sign of purity, the sign of refinement, the sign of health, habits, and routine. It's a sign of reality, really. Virgo is about reality. Okay, then we have Libra, sign of relationship. Okay, we have Scorpio after that, a sign of sex, death, and transformation. Death and also depth. Depth with a P. Going deep. Next, we have Sagittarius, sign of higher thinking, philosophy, and religion. Then we've got the 10th sign, Capricorn, a sign of structure, rules, laws, regulations, society, and growth. Then we got Aquarius, the sign of revolutionary thinking, the sign of the humanitarian. And then lastly, we got Pisces, the martyr, the empath, the dreamer, the mystic, the one who dissolves it all so we can start a new cycle. Okay, got our signs there. Now we're going to fill them in with the planets. Okay, so got a good question here from George. How do the oppositions of the signs come into play? When trying to understand one sign, I guess you can see what it isn't. Right, so, heads and tails are the two sides of a coin. So on the one side, we have Aries, which is all about the self. On the other side, we have Libra, which is all about others and relating. So the opposition shows you, since Aries is all about the self, what's the opposite of the self? Others. And the opposite of others is the self. So it shows you through the opposition what the complements are, but also what the opposite is. Okay, so Taurus is about materiality, about sensuality, being tuned into the body and its biological instincts. Scorpio is about emotion and sexuality. So sensuality and sexuality are two different things. And the thing is, opposites are always complementary in a weird way. So that's what the opposition show. It shows the energy that complements it, but also directly opposes it. So Leo is like, well, we have to shine as individuals. And Aquarius is like, well, we have to get along together and work together. So there's two different things there. Virgo says we got to have the physical figured out. And Pisces says the physical is just an illusion. It's all about, how you feel and what you intend and all this stuff. So they're two opposite but complementary types of energies. Okay, so we're going to deal with the planets now. So the ruler of Aries is Mars. Mars is the ruler. Boom. Okay. That's the ruler of Aries. Aries is headstrong, and it's all about action and identification and being the self. Mars is the planet that gets along the best with Aries because Mars gives that energy, that drive, that selfishness to achieve what you want from the self. All right. So, and it makes sense. Mars is very fiery, so it makes sense. And it's all about going first and taking action. So it makes sense it would be there with the first sign, right? I forgot to say, the original symbol for Mars was this, the cross of matter dominating the circle of spirit. Pretty interesting, which is just Venus turned upside down, isn't it? So Mars does show where we get into our ego, where we get all into ourselves and what we want. Mars is the source of anger. It rules the emotion of anger. Anger is a very, very, it's all about the self. So that's Mars. Okay. The ruler of Taurus is Venus. Venus is the ruler. And that's because Taurus is about identifying its values and what it loves about life. It's about slowing down and taking it in. All right. So the planet Venus, of course, would go along best with Taurus because Venus is about receiving. It's about identifying what we want in our interactions. It's also about sensual pleasures, what we love. So this is the earthy side of Venus. And it's about, tuning into our pleasures and our capacity to be creative and fertile, especially in a physical way. Okay. So Venus, it lines up with Taurus because it's about slowing down and taking life in, being able to build from a place that reflects our values. Okay. It's also a sign of beauty. So Venus shows itself here in the physical face of Taurus through physical beauty. So the signs, you guys, you can think of these as the filters through which energy comes through onto Earth. For anything to get onto Earth, which you could think of as being in the center, the planetary energies have to pass through the zodiac and get filtered through. So Mars can be in any sign, but Mars rules Aries, meaning it's at home in Aries. And no matter what sign Mars is in, it still carries that energy of taking action. In Cancer, it's just going to be more sensitive action, emotional action. In Leo, it's still going to be fiery action, but it's going to be more about creativity and joy and stuff. So the planets, okay, here's a powerful analogy for you. The planets are the actors in the cosmic drama. They're the actors. The signs are the costumes or the role that they're playing. The signs are the costumes that they're wearing. And then houses, once we get into houses, you'll understand that the houses are the stage or the setting in which the drama is taking place. And this is how the language of astrology works. Okay? So basically, you could have Cancer in the first house. Your first house could have the sign Cancer, and you could have Mars in Cancer in the first house. So the actor would be Mars, your drive for action, is wearing the Cancer costume of being maternal, protective, security driven, and in the first house. So it's about the first house relates to Aries. It's about the self or the identity. So maybe you really identify with your strength, Mars, and how you take action around what you want to protect or what is close to home for you. Maybe you identify with that first house. So that's how we start to put these things together, and that's how chart interpretation works. So next we have the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, the planet of communication, rules this sign of communication, this air sign. Mercury is at home in this air sign because air gives Mercury the space and the freedom to think, to travel, to analyze. Mercury is all about how you speak, think, and reason, and that finds its natural home in Gemini, the sign of two things, of the right brain, left brain, of communicating and learning. All right. The ruler of Cancer is the moon. And I'm going to do it this way because that's the most natural way for me to draw the moon. The moon rules Cancer, the home. Remember, the moon is about the past, the home, the mother. It, of course, rules Cancer, the sign of the home and the family. It just makes sense. Okay. So Cancer is a very reflective and moody sign, and it gets that energy from its ruler, the moon. Right next to the moon, the house of the moon, Cancer, we have Leo, which is ruled by the sun. We do a circle and then a point in the center. The sun rules Leo. Fun fact, each planet rules two signs except for the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon rule one sign. So Leo's the king, Cancer's the queen. That's just the way it is. All right. So they're complementary, right? The sun rules its kingdom with order, love, and authority. And the queen rules the kingdom by reflecting this light and nurturing it through sensitivity, reflection, and intuition. And it's an amazing thing. All right. Next to the sun in Virgo, the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. So this is the earth side of Mercury. Awesome. Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, Deidre said, awesome, understanding a lot. Good. This is where it does start to really click in your subconscious mind. This is the point at which you will have so many aha moments. Mercury rules Virgo, and this is about the part of the mind which wants to understand things through physical experimentation and critical analysis. So this is the part of the mind which is very scientific, because science deals with physics, the laws of physics. And that's why Mercury, or Virgo rather, is so critical, because it's tuned into the senses. It's very sensible because it's earth, but it's also very mental. It wants to understand things and find the laws and find what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, what occurs and what doesn't occur, what is scientifically valid and what is just hogwash, right? So again, it's about reality, and we interpret reality through the senses, and then we understand it through the mind, and we create science. So that's the earth face of Mercury. So we learned something about Mercury here. Okay, Mercury rules this air sign. Makes sense since it's of the mind and it's about communicating. Mercury also rules Virgo. This shows that Virgo does have a need to communicate and share and reason, but it also shows something about Mercury, that Mercury works through the earth, through the physical, in the way we understand things. Okay. And knowledge needs to be applied. So this is also where knowledge is about applying it, because application is a earthy sort of a thing. Okay, so now in Libra, the ruler of Libra is Venus. This is the day sign. Oh gosh, I got to grab my charger. Oh, I forgot to plug in my Mac. So Venus has a night sign that it rules, which is Taurus, because it's called the night sign because it's the negative element, meaning it's earthy. So it's yin, it's feminine. Feminine is related to the night. Masculine is related to the day. So the day face of Venus is Libra. And this shows that Venus has an element, a mental element to it. Venus rules Libra because Libra is all about relationship, and that's what Venus is about too. Mars is about the self, being self-willed. Venus is about taking others into consideration. And so, of course, she finds her home in Libra, which is all about weighing the balance, weighing options, finding harmony with others. So I want you guys to notice a pattern, because again, we're dealing with patterns here. I want you to notice and just see if you can notice a pattern that's taking place here. I'm not going to spoil it yet. We're going to do another circle after this, and we're going to orient this in a different way, and it'll blow your mind. Okay, next we have Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. This is the night face of Mars. Mars rules this water sign. It's very interesting that Mars would rule both a fire and a water sign, but fire and water are the life-giving elements. Everybody loves being around a large body of water, whether it's an ocean, a lake, or a creek, or a river. And everybody loves gathering around a fire together because fire and water are the life-giving elements. So this is the night face of Mars because it's water, which is feminine, which is the night. So this is the part of Mars, which is, again, this shows how Mars is all about desire, especially since it rules this sign of sexuality. It's about desires, and it's about, you know, being a little more strategic, a little more secretive in its plans to get what it wants, a little more elusive and possibly even deceptive. In war, there's the frontal assault always, but there's also sabotage and subterfuge. I think that's the word, where you attack in secret. And that's what Mars, the god of war, is about here in Scorpio. Okay, next we come to Sagittarius. Sag is ruled by Jupiter. Yeah, so Jupiter, the planet of expansion, rules this very expansive, mutable fire sign. Okay. Jupiter's about expanding through perceiving meaning, and that's what Sagittarius is about also. Gemini asks, how does that work? And Sagittarius asks, why does that work? Sagittarius wants to know the meaning of things, and of course, Jupiter helps in that. So the spirit of Jupiter rules over the sign Sagittarius. Okay. Next, we have in Capricorn. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. So again, we do a cross and the crescent there. Sometimes it has a little loop there, a little tail. It's just the way it's drawn. It doesn't have to, but sometimes it's drawn that way. So Saturn, the planet of contraction, rules this very contracted sign, which is about rules, laws, and regulations. All right. Saturn is the hard, unyielding, authoritarian father figure archetype. The sun is the father figure and it's providing, giving, warm aspect. This is the father's love, which is just warmth. It's supportive. It challenges you to be your best. It allows you to shine and to expand in who you are. This is that part of the father which is constrictive, which can be for the benefit of the child or otherwise. Obviously, every sign and every planet has its imbalance. Every sign and every planet has a skillful and an unskillful application. So Saturn, the planet of law, karma, limitation, of course, it rules over that sign of Capricorn, or the sign of society and structure. All right, next in Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled, and this is where we start to bring in the outer planets, but traditionally, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. And this shows that Saturn not only has an earthy part to it, but an airy part to it. And this is about mental discipline. So it's also interesting to look at the oppositions of the planets. The sun and Saturn have an opposition going here. So does Saturn and the moon. Saturn is, as we'll see, it's some of the most dense energy, and these are the lights. So I'll speak more on that in just a moment here. But Saturn, structure is still a very important component to Aquarius, even though Aquarius is about expanding those limitations that were set in Capricorn, and making sure the society is more fit for the revolutionary, free human spirit. But Aquarius knows it has to work through and with those laws. So you'll notice Aquarius does have a rigidness to it. Not only is it born in the heart of winter, there can be pretty cold people, opposite Leo, the heart, so that, there's even more coldness indicated there. But there's a rigidity which kind of comes naturally to them because their ruler is Saturn. Now, the secondary ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. And that's the, you could call it the modern ruler. All right. I don't know if I'll really be able to fit this in there, but you get the idea. So that's Uranus, terribly drawn. But Uranus also rules Aquarius, and it reflects the part of Aquarius which is revolutionary, which thinks outside the box and works through and outside of limitations, the limitation of Saturn. Aquarius does have an inventiveness to them, a genius-like quality of just lightning-like ideas and innovativeness. And it gets that from its ruler, Uranus. Okay, in Pisces, Pisces is ruled traditionally by Jupiter, planet of expansion. It expands in both fire and water. So there's a sensitive, soulful element to Jupiter, as well as this fiery, inspired expansiveness. So Jupiter does rule Pisces traditionally, always has, always will. Secondarily, the modern ruler of Pisces is Neptune. Okay. Neptune, the planet of dreams, ideals, visions, imagination. Of course, it would find its home here in the mystical sign of Pisces. There's also a secondary ruler or a modern ruler for Scorpio, and that is Pluto. Pluto is seen to be an accurate ruler for Scorpio in how it deals with death and transformation and rebirth and deeply repressed energies, which of course would be, would be the result of a fixed water sign. Whenever emotions get fixed or they have that concentration, they can tend to be brought very deep down into our depths. And from there, they can be hidden, they can be repressed, they can be shunned away and put back into the unconscious, as Carl Jung would say. So Pluto does have a rulership over Scorpio. Okay, now those are the planets and all the rulers of the planets, and this is called, in astrology, this is called essential businesses. No, I'm just kidding. Essential dignities. Essential dignities. That's what it's called in astrology. What planets rule over what signs? Those are called the essential dignities. Because the sun is said to have dignity in the sign of Leo. That's the old language for it. It means the sun is very comfortable. It's at home. It rules over the energy of Leo. Okay. So those are the planets there. Now, I want you to understand something extra here, and that is to understand the exaltations, because this sort of brings in an extra layer. All right. So I want you to know that the sun not only rules over a sign, but it also finds its exaltation in another sign. And the sun, so exalted just means it's a special guest in that sign. It means it gets special treatment when it's in that sign. It has a dimension of being able to express itself very fully in that sign. If you were born with a planet in exaltation, it means that planet has natural strength to it. Okay, so the sun is exalted in Aries. I'm just going to draw it out here so you can know it's exalted. You might want to write in your notes exalted next to it. The sun is exalted in Aries because the sun, which represents your identity or your consciousness, works extremely well through the head and the brain and the face. The face is what identifies us. But this relates to the spiritual qualities here. When we raise the consciousness of the heart upward into the brain, we find an exaltation of our spiritual nature. The moon finds her exaltation in the sign Taurus, because the moon wants security. It wants to feel secure, and it can really do that through the energy of Taurus. Taurus is all about understanding what the body needs and what you want, what you find pleasure in, and building that security in the world. So of course the moon would find an amazing exalted expression in Taurus. All right. What's exalted in Gemini? Let me see here. Let me just pull something up real quick. Is this making sense, you guys? Hopefully you're getting this. Let me see. All right. Okay, so Mercury doesn't actually have any exaltation. It's not. Oh gosh, what's happening here? Please tell me you're recording, Zoom. Okay, cool. All right, so Mercury has nothing exalted in it. Um, it's just it has no exaltation, okay, which is kind of revealing in itself. Um, just shows the kind of the neutrality of Gemini and of Mercury. So sorry guys, give me one sec. I don't know why this isn't. Why won't this load? Okay, so the exalted planet for Cancer is Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And this kind of shows that um, that emotion and the maternal aspect of the soul and that part of us that wants to nurture, that's really meaningful. That's where a lot of meaning comes from in life. It's like our early experiences with a mother or with a person who was that influence in life. Um, so yeah, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It finds special treatment here in this water sign. So this is sort of showing another dimension of the elements for the planets, what elements these planets thrive in. Okay. What's exalted in Leo? Nothing. Nothing. It's just ruled by the sun. No, that shows the simplicity of Leo as well. It's the ruler, it's the heart. It just is what it is. The exaltation of Virgo is actually Mercury. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. So that's the only sign that has a double exaltation. Just shows that Mercury does extremely well in Virgo because it's all about analysis, information, reality. Just give me the cut and dry logic and facts. It's kind of Mercury. That's Virgo there. All right. The planet that's exalted in Libra, and this is fascinating, is Saturn. I love this. Now, the reason I think this is so fascinating is because, again, we're seeing another opposition here between the sun and Saturn. Yet again, this time in their exaltation signs. So Saturn does extremely well in Libra because Libra is about finding out what's the real balance. It's also about like form. Venus has to do with form since it's the first ruler of Taurus, which is an earth sign. And, it's about creativity, but form is an essential aspect in dance, having proper form. It's essential, especially for being social with people. If you stand too close or if you're standing too far away, or your form in your social environments has to do with whether or not you'll be in harmony with others. So Saturn, and I've had incredible realizations just bubble up within me by contemplating how Saturn is exalted in Libra and why that is, and this element of relationship, and how our social and mental relationships do require a degree of discipline. If we don't have a discipline over ourselves, our relationships will fall apart. If I overindulge, if I share too much, if I try and take too much from you, all of that will take away from our relationship. So it's very interesting, that dynamic there. All right. The planet that's exalted in Scorpio is none. There is no exalted planet in Scorpio. Apparently, traditionally, Sagittarius has no exalted planet either. Um, the planet that's exalted in Capricorn, Capricorn does have a planet that's exalted there, and that planet is Mars. And that's because Capricorn, as a cardinal earth sign, right? It's cardinal. So it is about taking action, about leading, it's about initiating. And Mars likes all those things. But Mars does really well in Capricorn because it's about skill and action. It's about acting with skill, and especially physically. Okay. So, hey, good job. Deidre said she guessed it. Very nice. Yeah. So Mars does well in Capricorn. All right. Very well. It's called exalted. There is no planet that's exalted in Aquarius. And the planet that's exalted in Pisces is, drum roll, Venus. This is very interesting as well. This shows that Venus does so well in Pisces because Pisces has the ability to create or tune into unconditional love. All right. So when Venus is in Pisces, it's not just personal affection, it's about the affection of the soul. And this is another element to show that divine love is really going to manifest through humanity as we learn to let go and see ourselves in the spiritual reality that we live in. Because what we see here, it's not in the appearances, it's not in the body, it's not in the face, it's in discipline, mental discipline. It's in controlling our desires, our personal impulses, and disciplining those, and feeling through the wisdom of the body to see the soul that lies beyond it, and learning to love that and have compassion for that. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. All right, another dimension. So we've got rulerships. Rulership is just, the planets are at home there. They enjoy being there. We got the ruler, which is like, it's like the planet is just at home. Okay, it's natural. And it's really where the planet feels the best. Exalted is, it's not home, but it's a special guest. So it's like when you go somewhere and you're a special guest, you feel great there, but you're not going to stay there forever because it's not your home. You'll enjoy being there. You'll probably prolong your stay for as long as you can. It's like that's the sun gets special treatment in Aries. It's like the first day of spring. That's the day when the sun begins rising. That's that vernal equinox point, if you guys remember from the last class. So of course, the sun is like, yippee! It's like being born again in Aries. And it's on the up climb. It's on the upward ascent. So the sun loves being in Aries. Okay. Look how the sun and moon are close together yet again in the exalted signs. Interesting. Okay. So the exalted is being a special guest. Next, we have detriment. Detriment. As you might guess from the word, it means the planet is not going to enjoy being there. So we could think of this as, this is basically opposite the ruler. This corresponds to being the opposite of the ruler. And you're going to see this. I'm going to show you this. So this would be about being away from home. What can we call that? I'm thinking of these analogies on the fly. Yeah, you could say they're lost. Yeah, they're wandering. They're not very secure in that environment. Okay, and then there's, yeah, like a nomad. There's one more set of dignities, and that is called the fall. When a planet is in fall position. So fall corresponds to the exaltation. It's like the opposite of being exalted. So being in fall is like when you're the opposite of a special guest. What could that be like? Like when you're in an environment where people are not treating you specially, you're not wanted there, or you're feeling the most uncomfortable. Yeah, an uninvited guest. Yeah, that's really what it would feel like. Or hostility, scapegoat. Nice. These are good here in the chat. But it's more so just like a loss of power, like you're just not in your element. So we could say, yeah, I think uninvited guest would probably be the best, since it does correspond to being the opposite. Whoops. Oh Lord. We'll say that, uninvited guest. Uninvited. We'll just say that. All right. So as you figure this out, this will be intuitive. It'll be intuitive why this is. Okay, so now we're going to explain the fall position of these planets, and this is really going to, this is what pieces in all the meanings for you together. Okay, so I'm looking for a specific table here, the table of essential dignities by Ptolemy. Ptolemy was an old, I think it was 17th, maybe 16th century alchemist and astrologer. He was a very fascinating individual. And so let me find out where this table is at. Here it is. Okay. So the detriment, we're going to deal with the detriment, where the planets feel lost. And you're going to notice this pattern here. So the detriment, and I'm going to do this in black so that you know it's detriment. The detriment for Aries is going to be Venus. I guess we'll just put it in there. We'll include it in there since it's sort of corresponds to the ruler. Okay. Venus does not like being in Aries. Venus doesn't want to be the leader. Venus doesn't want to have to take action that's going to be disruptive to others. Venus wants to be in Libra, where you're taking the balance into consideration, where you're thinking of the other, where the other is coming from, and where you can see both sides. So for Venus to be single pointed, one pointed, and direct, it's very hard for Venus. So she's in detriment in Aries. Okay, the planet that's in detriment in Taurus is Mars. Mars does not like being in Taurus because Mars doesn't like to take its time and to feel the environment and feel its body and make sure that the building is going well. And Mars likes to rush in, go to battle, go to war, and fight it out. Mars doesn't really get to do that in Taurus. It's much more, it has to be much more grounded and tuned in. And it can be very frustrating for Mars to have to move at the pace of the bull, to just be plodding along. And Mars can be pretty wasteful too. So when you have Mars in the sign of money, like Taurus, it could show a wastefulness in the chart, maybe due to impulsiveness or a lack of patience. And that person with Mars and Taurus would have to learn to slow down and take their time. Okay, so the planet that's in detriment in Gemini is going to be the planet opposite that rules the opposite sign. Are you guys seeing this? So the detriment for Aries is the sign that rules Libra, Venus. The detriment for Taurus is the sign that rules Scorpio, Mars. The planet that's in detriment in Gemini is the planet that rules the opposite sign, which is Jupiter. Jupiter doesn't enjoy being in Gemini because Gemini is just such a it can be such a practical thinker and just so incredibly mental that it's lacking the fiery intuitiveness that Jupiter enjoys, where it can perceive meaning. And Jupiter just doesn't jive well in Gemini. Okay. So the planet that's in detriment in Cancer, you can probably guess now. It would be Saturn, since Saturn rules Capricorn. This is how you remember the rulerships and the detriments. Okay. Saturn doesn't like being in Cancer because it has to feel more. It has to tune into the emotions. It would rather have the cold earthiness of Taurus to just do what it's got to do to create the limitations or the boundaries. So it's not so easy for Saturn to be in Cancer because it's such a feeling and emotional and caring sign. It's hard to put boundaries against somebody that you really care about. And this shows how that's a part of the test. Your boundaries aren't boundaries if you just have leaks in it because, oh, I just care about them. Well, if you mean, and this is a part of the spiritual lesson too, if you really care, you would have boundaries. So the planet that's in detriment in Leo is of course also going to be Saturn. Saturn hates being in Leo because it's just so expressive and fun and warm, and Saturn loses its ability to maintain boundaries yet again here in this sign. Saturn also loses its coldness and its accuracy of detail, like it finds in Capricorn and Aquarius, because in Leo, it's so expansive and creative and beautiful and colorful that Saturn kind of loses its cut and dry ability there. All right, the planet that's in detriment in Virgo, let's see if you can guess. It's going to be Jupiter, of course. Jupiter does not do well in Virgo either because it's a Mercury ruled sign. So we're noticing a relationship between Mercury and Jupiter. We notice a relationship between Mars and Venus, between the moon and Saturn, between the sun and Saturn. So Jupiter is like, very intuitive, whereas Mercury is just based on logic and facts and analysis. Okay. The detriment for Libra is, of course, going to be Mars. Mars is not comfortable in Libra either because it's Venus's terrain. I was born with Mars in Libra, so I can tell you, I've always grown up feeling like there's something wrong with me because it's almost impossible for me to cut somebody off when they're talking. And people will just talk and talk and talk. And sometimes in life, you have to get your foot in. You have to find a way for you to speak. And it's just so hard for me to do that because my Mars is like wanting to listen all the time. So I always thought there was something wrong with me, like I'm not masculine enough or whatever. It could be because your masculinity functions in a Venus way. So I've learned to capitalize on that and to be a counselor where I can use my ability to listen and to let people talk. I've learned to own that part of me. So every strength is a weakness and every weakness is a strength, as we're learning here. Okay, the planet that's in detriment in Scorpio is, of course, going to be Venus. Venus is not at home in Scorpio because Scorpio is about desire and it's also about penetration. Venus would rather stay light and easy and on the surface. It's hard for Venus to navigate these deep, dark waters, which are so raw and real and at times ugly. And Venus likes to be beautiful, so it's hard for Venus there. Okay, the planet, of course, going to be in detriment in Sagittarius is Mercury. It's hard for Mercury to analyze the facts in such an expansive, fiery energy. There's just, too many possibilities here for Mercury. Mercury has to really open its mind here in this sign. And you'll notice, since this is our instinct to think, speak, and reason, whenever somebody has Mercury in Sagittarius, they kind of have a hard time putting their ideas down because they hate to limit their mind. They love to have such an open, expansive mind and stay open to possibilities and widening the horizons that as soon as they put their ideas down on paper, it's like they limited themselves. It's like they're cheating. It's like, words always limit. So it can be hard for Mercury in Sagittarius. All right, the sun is in, or excuse me, the moon is in detriment in Capricorn. It's really hard with a moon in Capricorn person. It can be a bit of a challenge to open up or to warmly give and receive emotional warmth and nurturance, because Capricorn is all about limiting, contracting, understanding structure. So sometimes these people can have trouble expressing their emotions. It's not as easy for the moon to express itself in Capricorn as it is in Cancer. And then, of course, the sun is going to be debilitated or in detriment. Both words apply in Aquarius. It's just the sun. Aquarians, you'll notice this. Aquarians have a hard time, like, it's just something hard for them to be an individual and to allow themselves to shine. It's always like they're just, they want to be, they'd rather kind of blend in with the group, you know? And then we got Mercury, which doesn't do so well in, Mercury is in detriment in Pisces. And you may notice this with anybody who has Mercury in Pisces. It can be very hard for them to, same thing as Mercury in Sagittarius. It's just hard for them to nail down their ideas, to get them on paper, to limit them, because it's such an intuitive, expansive, and imaginative mind. It likes to roam and go all over the place. So Mercury doesn't do so well. That Mercury can get pretty confused in those mystical waters. All right, so those are the detriments. Now, the last thing we have here is the fall, the planets that are in fall. And those planets, planets that are in fall are going to be the planets that are opposite the exalted ones. Okay. So basically, Saturn has its fall in Aries. Okay. Saturn, oh gosh. We can do better. Saturn is at fall in Aries. All right. And, you know, because Aries is about rushing forward, expanding the self, expressing the self, and Saturn has a hard time in that energy. It's in cardinal fire energy. It's that fall. It's like an uninvited guest there. It's like, who invited you, Saturn? This is about creation of self and identity. And Saturn's more about structuring according to the society or the group in Aquarius. Okay. There is no planet in fall in Taurus. Taurus doesn't have a planet in fall because there's no planet in exaltation in Scorpio. In Gemini, there's no planet in fall because there's no planet that's exalted in Sagittarius. For Cancer, and this is probably the hardest thing to remember, is like, wait, what's in fall in Gemini? Because you have to remember, like, there is no planet in fall in Gemini, because there is no planet that's exalted in Gemini. But this will start to click, and it will make sense. All right, the planet that is at fall in Cancer, can anybody tell me what that would be? If the planet that's exalted in Capricorn is Mars, that means that Mars has its fall in Cancer. Okay. It's hard for Mars to fully be itself and to go for what it wants in Cancer, because Cancer has an outer shell and it always moves sideways like a crab does. It's never fully direct, because Cancer is this energy which is sensitive. So Mars has a hard time just rushing forward and doing what it's got to do when it's in Cancer, right? No planet in fall in Leo. The planet that is in fall in Virgo, however, can you tell me what that would be? That would be Venus. Venus falls in Virgo. And because this is a love, and you'll notice this with Venus and Virgo people, they try to win love through favors, through acts of service, through providing material things or information. And that's not where you don't get love that way. That's why Venus is exalted in Pisces, because it just lets go of the personal self in general. And it's about universal love. And when you reach that point, you don't run out of love. You have an infinite love around you. You can derive love from the trees. You can get love from the bugs when they land on you. You can get love from the flowers and have gratitude that the flowers bloomed just for you because they love you. There's a universal love which you can tap into. And when you do, you have no shortage of love. However, love in this mercurial sign of Virgo, it tries to make love a logical thing. Like, I gave you all this stuff. Why don't you love me? Because love doesn't work that way. You can't understand it that way. That's what Mercury tries to do, understand. So when Venus is in Virgo, it's like, oh, logically, okay, I love this person, so I'm going to do everything for them. And that's not how it works. So Venus is in fall in Virgo. All right. In Libra, the planet that's in fall would, of course, be the sun. The sun does not do well in Libra. You'll notice this with Libra people, especially Libra men. I've noticed just Libra men, they have a hard time existing. I'm sorry, Libra men. And my dad's a Libra guy too. And when I say they have trouble existing, I mean, they have trouble just like shining in their masculinity. They can do it, but there's this feminine element that just comes through Libra energy, whether they're males or females, where they just seem to be really concerned with personal, interpersonal, social dynamics that it's hard for them to just shine and be themselves. And that's the part of the strength, how every strength is a weakness, every weakness is a strength. Leo can shine so naturally and purely and be itself because Leo has an immature social consciousness. The social consciousness in the psyche doesn't develop fully until we reach that 7th sign where we have our first opposition. And that's what the balance is, and that's what the fall of the sun is about. This is the fall of the self, the sun, and the rising of the other, and of the need to structure, limit, or discipline the self, Saturn. That's why Saturn is exalted in Libra, and the sun is at fall in Libra. Okay, so again, these symbols are working on your higher mind. It's pouring into you from your higher self, speaking to your soul, and your soul is going, yes, this makes sense. And it's happening through the symbols. So a part of this is, I mean, a big part of this is using your intuition, but it's like, yeah, that kind of logically makes sense. So if something is not making full sense to you just yet, just continue to meditate on the symbols, contemplate this stuff. It will click. It will start to click. And you'll start to see in your own life, you'll have ideas pop up from your subconscious mind of like different scenarios you were in. That's what's really incredible as you study people's birth charts. You start to remember interactions you've had or weird energy things with them. And you go, oh my God, that was their Mars in Capricorn. They're just so strong in that way. I thought they were cold hearted, but they have just such a strong Mars that they just go for what they want and they do it very skillfully, or whatever it is, whatever it might be, whatever example pops into your head, right? All right, moving on. Scorpio, the moon is at fall. And this is what's so interesting about Scorpio. So it's got no planet exalted there. But it does have a planet in fall. And that's because the moon is exalted in Taurus. So the moon and the sun, they're unique players in this drama. Aren't, that's obvious. So the moon is at fall in Scorpio. I've had more clients that have the moon in Scorpio than anyone, because moon and Scorpio people, the moon seeks security, right? And Scorpio is about deep, raw emotional experiences. So in seeking security, these people tend to go very, very deep into life, either deep into themselves. They tend to be mystically inclined, so they tend to seek out astrologers. Any astrologer will tell you that they've worked with a lot of Moon and Scorpio people. And it's just crazy how that is. But it's because, these people have become Moon, they become attached emotionally to things that are probably not so good for them. And they don't know how to unattach, or they don't know how to get unstuck. And so because they're mystically inclined, they seek the help of an astrologer because they know, okay, this is probably tied to deep karmic stuff. And the Moon seeks security, but it's hard to find that security in raw, transformative emotional exchanges. That's just not a very secure terrain. It's much easier for the Moon to find its security in doing what it has to do to have a full bank account, or doing what it has to do to have a soft bed at night. These Moon and Scorpio people are just like, I don't know, I'm kind of comfortable in Hades in the underworld, and I'm comfortable in drama and crazy wild sex, or I'm comfortable in chaotic relationships. And it tends to stem from mother karma. And most of the time they need to forgive their mothers. All right. Now, moving on to Sagittarius. There's no planet in fall. Nothing in fall, nothing in exaltation. Actually, you know what's very interesting? This is according to Ptolemy. Ptolemy says that the North Node is exalted in Gemini and that the South Node is exalted in Sagittarius. I can't really tell you why that is. I'm not going to lie. I have an idea, which is that the North Node is about evolution, the South Node is about karma and what holds us back. So when we understand the meaning of our karma, we're able to transcend it. Maybe that's why the South Node is exalted in Sagittarius. And then through understanding and digesting things mentally, knowledge, we're able to move forward. So that could be, that's just sort of a little side note for now. Okay. So the planet that would be in fall in Capricorn is, of course, going to be Jupiter. It's very hard for Jupiter to find its expansive self and expression in the energy of Capricorn, because Capricorn searches for growth and long-term goals, and it doesn't have all this energy available for what ifs or for expansive horizons. It's more about the here and now and how to, build practically. So Jupiter has a hard time in Capricorn. And the planet that's in fall in Aquarius is None. And the planet that's in fall in Pisces is, of course, going to be Mercury. So we notice Mercury is not only in detriment in Pisces, poor guy, he's also in fall in Pisces. So Mercury has a real hard time in Pisces, is what we're seeing from that. It's just hard. It's hard for Mercury to find concrete facts and details and how to express them in accurate language in such intuitive, imaginative, soulful terrain. Okay. So those are the essential dignities. Great job, you guys. You are leagues ahead of 95% of people now in astrology. Even though this is just the beginning, this is really the meat and potatoes of it. If you grasp this, you know astrology now. So congrats. And you're only a few steps away from being an astrologer. All you have to do is understand what planets rule what signs, then add these extra layers. What are the exaltations? Oh, the sun's exalted in Aries. Oh, that's interesting. The sun is the symbol of the self, and Aries is about identification of the individual. So of course that makes sense. Okay. Oh, Saturn's the planet of limitation. Okay. All right. And then you piece this all together and intuitively it makes sense. And then the next step from there is just we add in the houses, which is the third layer, and then you're able to interpret charts. George says, what true node? The true node is called the north node. It's just another word for the north node. And again, this shows the direction of evolution and growth of the soul. It's dharma, whereas the south node is karma. Yeah, they're the same thing. All right, so now, so that's that. Congrats, guys. Just make sure to, hopefully you have written, what's going on here. The fact that Venus is in detriment, Saturn's at fall, Sun is exalted. I just don't have a lot of room to write all that. So hopefully that's making sense for you guys. You could also do like a little star over here by exalted and then just put a star next to the ones that are exalted. Whatever makes it easiest for you in your notes. Okay? Again, I want to congratulate you guys. Very, very good job. Now I have one more thing to share with you, and then that will conclude our classes. And so congrats, guys. Good job, good work. All right. Let me cap those markers and put this down here. Okay. Hi there. George says, I am a Pisces. I thought I loved Mercury, and I'll have to rethink that. You can still love Mercury. It's just Mercury might not love you so much. And it's not you, it's the energy of Pisces is hard for Mercury to deal with because of the mutable water energy of the sign. So if you're ever wondering, why does the planet have a hard time there? Or sorry, that was Henry, not George. Why does the planet have a hard time there? Just think of what is the energy of the sign. Is it mutable water? Mutable means it's adaptable. It helps for a transition into a new state. It's not fixed. It's not focused. And add the water element to it. Now it's emotional. It's intuitive. So that'll kind of explain. It's sort of self-explanatory. Mercury does do great with the mutable energy, obviously finding its home in Gemini, a mutable air sign, but mutable water is a different sort of a thing. It's very adaptable emotionally, whereas mutable air is adaptable mentally. Making sense? Okay, so I've got a little presentation here for you just to kind of further cement these things. And okay, once again, we went to 2 hours. Well, okay, this is more content. But we're going to wrap it up here with this. So I just want to give you some visuals. All right. First thing I want you to know is that reality is beautiful. It's perfect. All is well. And we are not living in reality as human beings. We are living in we are living in a matrix where we interpret reality through our 5 senses. And it's not the true, we're not in touch with reality as it is. We're in touch with reality as it appears through time, through our eyes, through our ears, and through the limitation of the mind. In reality, all is well. And this is kind of the reality you can tune into from your heart. And it's so cool because I can see it. Like it's something you can see inwardly. And it's something you can tune into. And I wasn't able to tune into it until I was given peace by the grace of God when I forgave my parents. And I know that sounds so cheesy. It sounds a certain way, but it just is what it is. All human issues are tied to the same root. Your issue was my issue. My issue is it's all the same. We're either run by our ego or we are run by our heart, by the spirit. And we're either controlled by the dark or we're controlled by the light. And there is no free will in that sense. The freedom of the will comes through the grace of God, because God, the spirit in your heart, shows you a different way that you can act in the blink of an eye, through the space of your awareness, which detaches you from the impulsiveness of your thoughts. And the thoughts run you through karma, through the body, through the past. So there's the spirit and then there's the ego. What the ego is, it's just identification with the thoughts, and it's an illusion. So people who identify with the ego, they can't help themselves. They can't help but defend the ego. And they're defending an illusion. And that's why they feel so empty and insecure, is because they're losing energy by defending an illusion. It's like they're defending a ghost. So of course that energy is going somewhere. It's not going to you. It's going to this defense of this illusion of this thing that you think you are. Okay. So when you meditate, when you get very, very still and silent, and you learn to let the thoughts be there, but you let them pass, you're able to tune into this other dimension, which the heart can perceive and the mind can never comprehend or put words to it. So don't even try. And it's a practice of learning to see and to stay there as the seer. Okay? So the planets show the different ways that energy works through us as observers. The main observer is the sun, then the moon reflects that. That reflection happens in the mind, in the body mind. Really, the body and the mind are one. In yoga, we're taught that the body is one end of the pole. It's the most dense vibration. And then the mind is a higher vibration. So you don't see it, but you see the effects of the mind. And the effects of the mind happen through the body. So the planets are the main players of the cosmic drama, the most important part of astrology. They're like the actors in a play. The signs are the roles, the costumes that the planets wear. And the houses are the setting or the backdrop for the actions of the planets. So this is a preview of what's to come in my course, my full-length astrology course, My Cosmic Identity. And in this lesson, we spent so much time on each planet, understanding it very deeply. Okay. So again, I just took this from my course. If you want to see this full-length course, I'd be happy to give you a discount on it. That the $50 for these classes will just go towards that course. You can get $50 off your purchase. So here's our solar system. We got the sun, then Mercury, then Venus, then Earth. Of course, there's the moon, and the Earth is in between Venus and Mars. Another sign to show here that we are living in a world of duality, of half male, half female. And our lesson here is to learn to work together, to integrate these two opposites. After that, we have the asteroid belt, which is where Chiron is and the other asteroids. Then after that is Jupiter, the biggest boy. These are not accurate sizes, by the way. Jupiter is incredibly way more massive than all the other planets. After Jupiter, we have Saturn. And then after that, these planets, which we can't see with the naked eye. And of course, Saturn represents limitation, also the limit to which our senses can perceive. And then we have Uranus, and then we have Neptune, and then we have Pluto. So in my astrology course, I guide you through each planet. I give you some information from different books that tell you amazing things about the mysteries of these planets. I tell you everything you need to know, and you get to keep all these slides, by the way. What the glyph means, the orbital cycle, the retrograde cycle, the qualities, all these things, the psychology, the urge. And yeah, so you just get it all here in this course. And I worked on this a lot. I put a lot of things together for you. So if you're interested in this course, you can sign up now, and we're going to get started around solstice. And I'm thinking it'll be a 4-week thing. So we'll meet every week. We'll pick a day that works for everybody. I'm thinking Sunday would be the day. And we'll meet every Sunday. I'll give you a little presentation, and it'll be just like these classes. You get to take notes. because there's a lot more to cover, obviously, but we've already gone for 2 hours. So that's a total of 4 hours for both classes. So I think we're going to end it here, but where interpretation comes in is in understanding the elements more broadly, and then more specifically, the sign. So the broad thing is, if your moon is in a fire sign and the moon represents how you emotionally respond and seek security, then if it's in a fire sign, security is found through self-expression, through inspiration. If it's in earth, it's found in form and structure and the things you can touch and experience with your senses. If it's in air, security is found in the world of ideas and communication, mental relationships with others. If it's in water, then security is likely found through emotional intimacy. Okay, so we go through all of these for all the planets, and there's just a wealth of information. There's so much more to go through here for you. If you'd like to see, I'll give you a little preview of what this course is. We actually have a platform where we host it all. And so this course is normally at $200, but for you, you'd have $50 off. It's got 7 assignments, tons of videos, and all the modules are all there for you. You can have access to me, unlimited access, any question you have at any time of the day. I'll respond as soon as I can and kind of guide you through this and coach you through this. Of course, we'll have the weekly meetups. So if that sounds interesting to you, that offer is there for you. You create a little login and you'll be able to access the course there. It'll be a blast. So I think that's it, you guys. I love you so much. When is solstice? That's around the 21st. So that's just what I'm thinking of launching it. Maybe we'll push it back a little more to give people more time. And I'm going to keep doing classes like these. You guys are invited also to June 4th and 5th. At least I think we're going to host classes on those days. If you'd like to do these classes again, they'll just be repeat classes. Hopefully going to get some new students in. But I hope you enjoyed this. I love you so much. I hope you gain something out of this, and that this helps you understand the psyche of human beings and also the spiritual journey that we're all on as we take on these bodies and work through these personalities and have these various different needs and psychological complexes and stuff. Astrology deals with the root of it all. And this is why Carl Jung was so into it. There's the 4 types: thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensation. And thinking and feeling are about judgment. They're about evaluating and judging not like judgment, like resentment, but judging and evaluating things. We do that through thinking and feeling. And then we have sensation, which is understanding things through the senses, and intuition. And intuition and sensation are both about understanding facts of reality, either intuiting it through intuiting wholeness or ideas, or through sensation, through being able to actually experience it physically. And Carl Jung discovered that all personalities are ruled by one in the main. You're either mainly an intuition functioning person, a thinking, a feeling, or a sensing person. And then there's a secondary one, which is of the opposite pair. And so there's a lot more to get into here about psychology and how this works. But I hope that this gave you a firm foundation from which you can start to build it for yourself. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. As always, I'm your astrologer, Christian Klausner, and I love you so much. Be very blessed, and I will see you very soon. Peace.